All right. Well, we are coming back on air because we now have a new tornado warning across some of the same areas that were impacted earlier.
Am I done, McKay?
When we look at the tornado warning, it stays active through 6:30. So we have about an hour and 2 minutes with this warning that's out there. And it is because of a thunderstorm that's showing signs of rotation. And the storm itself is moving to the east at about 40 miles per hour. So that'll take this storm system south of Natchez. Well, let's put a track on it so you can see more or less some towns and some cities that may be impacted by this. Again, the storm is moving to the east at about 40 miles per hour. And when we put a track on the storm, let's do some adjusting, we will see what towns and communities may be impacted by this storm. So as we do that, we'll drag it out east and we'll see places like Argo, Acme as we head toward about 5:40 p.m., so about 10 minutes or so from now. And then Deer Park by the time we get to 6:07. So if you were expecting the end of our KNOE broadcast, we're now switching into severe weather coverage because of this dangerous storm that is moving through portions of LaSalle, Catahoula, and eventually it will move into Concordia Parish. So I want to clear, actually I want to save this and then I want to clear the map so you can clearly see where the storm is. We're looking at this storm that is centered right now across southern portions of Catahoula Parish. So if you are in those areas, we're looking at some very potent activity, a very potent storm pushing through. It has been strengthening over the last few minutes, and this is the activity that is continuing to push to the east. If you are in Natchez, right now you're not under that tornado warning. It's just to the west of you, the same for Vidalia. But again, if this storm continues to push east, they may extend that warning to cover part of your region. So we want you to be aware that this is what we're dealing with. This is the threat that we're facing. And so we want you to take it very seriously. If you are in Jonesville, for instance, you are dealing with rain showers and thunderstorms now, but that is not warned for tornadic weather. But we are noticing, again, some fairly potent weather moving through southern portions of Catahoula Parish. I want to take a look at velocity too, just to see if we can get an idea of what's happening with the rotation. And if we have to point out where we see the strongest signs, we typically look for where the reds and greens are coming together. We are noticing that more or less right in this area right here. So it's more or less between DeVille, north of Marksville. Let's see if we can zoom in a little bit more and get a better idea of communities that may be impacted. This is a more rural area, but Argo, you're right there in the thick of things. So if you are watching us in Argo, we want you in the most interior part of your home. We want you away from windows. We want you as protected as possible because this is the area that we're tracking right here. And the storm itself is pushing to the east. So Argo in particular, again, we need you in your safe area. If you are, for instance, at home, that means get to the most interior part of your home. If you have a hallway you can get into, if you have a bathroom without windows or a closet without windows, all of that will keep you safe. And I do want to reiterate, we have not had a confirmed tornado with this warning, but the storm itself, again, is showing strong signs of rotation. Anytime you have the greens and the reds close together, that's typically where we have the rotation, and that's what we are continuing to track. Now, I do want to show you again, that warning stays with us at least through 6:30. So we have about an hour or so, but as we saw with the earlier warning, if you were watching us, the National Weather Service office out of Jackson, Mississippi, they will continually trim this warning as the storm continues to push to the east. But this warning will be with us. And even as I mentioned trimming it, they just took part of that warning away that was just outside of our viewing area. So the storm itself and that warning are completely in our viewing area right now. And this does look like a fairly potent storm. It's likely producing very heavy rain. When we look at the radar estimates, we're even looking at 1.5 inch size hail with this storm that is pushing through. So today's threats we face include tornadoes, damaging wind, but also some hail. And so that's what we're dealing with this storm that continues to push to the east. And as we take a look at what's happening outside of this area, things are quiet, but it's really areas well south across our viewing area and extending into much of Mississippi. Our friends and neighbors to the north and east, they're dealing with severe weather in Mississippi. But again, we're most concerned with this weather that's moving through. And we'll have to keep an eye on this particular thunderstorm that's also moving into southern Tensas Parish. It's not warm now, but it could potentially hold its strength, maybe even strengthen more and bring more impacts to parts of our viewing area. So if you're just tuning in and you were expecting the evening news with Tony DeCopel, we're breaking into your regular coverage just to point out that we're dealing with a tornado warned storm. This is a dangerous storm moving through, and it's continuing to push to the east at about 25 to 40 miles per hour. We just got an updated scan, and the storm itself is still holding together, but we will watch over the next few minutes to see if it begins to weaken and eventually start to exit our region. But I do want to send it over to meteorologist Abby Ezell to talk a little bit more about this warning, and just to let you know we're dealing with dangerous weather moving through. Abby?
Hi, Marcus. Yeah, I am noticing the storm is across portions of Catahoula as well as Concordia Parish at this time, and will continue to travel off towards the east at about 40 miles per hour. I do want to go ahead and show you that rotation. It does look pretty strong at this point, right on the very edge of Catahoula Parish right now, where those reds and green coloring is coming together. I am going to move the map up just a little bit so you can get a better view of that. That's right there along Louisiana Highway 124. Is about to cross into portions of Concordia Parish within the next couple of minutes. Once again, this is a fairly fast moving storm at about 40 miles per hour off towards the east. So I did put a track out, so I am going to go ahead and show you what that looks like for the rest of the night. Again, we have this warning with us for another hour or so. It's moving off towards the east at about 40 miles per hour. So we're talking about places like Larto at 5:43 p.m., New Era at 5:54 p.m., Deer Park at 6:29, and then Fairview at 6:36 p.m. Again, this is a very strong storm. You'll want to be away from windows and in the lowest level interior spot of your home at this point, as we are continuing to track out this dangerous storm. I do want to go ahead and take you back to the current radar and show you exactly where we're watching. We're watching the very edge of Catahoula Parish and into portions of Concordia Parish. This is, again, a very fast-moving storm. We were tracking it about an hour ago when we were on for our earlier tornado warning across portions of Alexandria. It was showing signs of development at that point, but now we're really seeing it starting to pick up a little bit more in its development. They issued a tornado warning on it earlier, and it has continued to strengthen ever so slightly. Once again, here is that rotation. We do have a very strong rotation at this point, showing those reds and greens coming together, and near Louisiana Highway 124. This will continue to track into portions of Concordia Parish within the next couple of minutes. Marcus, what are you seeing now with the storm?
Well, I just wanted to highlight again where that storm was located, and you pointed out where we're seeing some strong signs of rotation. Again, we have not had a confirmation of a tornado on the ground, but when we see things like that, it lets us know that the thunderstorm is rotating, and again, it has that potential to drop a tornado. So we want you to take this storm very seriously. If you are in the Argo area in particular, we want you to take it seriously as this storm is passing pretty much right near you as we speak. Now, when we take a look at places downstream that will likely feel the impacts of the storm, we're looking at Deer Park. If it holds together, by the time we get to about 6:06, maybe even a little bit sooner than that, I want to update that crawl actually, or that track, just to make sure we have the most accurate information for you. But yeah, we're looking at Deer Park right around 6 p.m. or so, and then areas farther downstream. I also want to zoom in a little bit more and show you what areas are being impacted by this fairly potent storm. As we zoom in, we're looking at Larto, also New Era, Acme, dealing with this dangerous storm moving through. You are all under that tornado warning, so we want you to take it very seriously. It looks like the strongest signs of rotation are actually more or less right south of Larto and New Era, so right along the Concordia Parish southern boundary, but the storm itself is moving to the east. So as we look downstream, we're looking at Acme, Argo, then Bougier eventually, and then as we continue to track the storm moving east, we may see it pass just south of Natchez. But as of now, Natchez, I want you on guard because you may also be you may be put under this tornado warning. So as we talk about the warning one more time, the time now is 5:38. This warning goes through about 6:30 p.m. So about 50 or so minutes from now with this warning, but we'll notice it being trimmed back as the storm moves farther to the east. We'll also be watching to see if this warning is extended farther to the east. If it's not extended farther to the east, that'll be another sign that the storm itself is continuing to weaken. But it is a fairly potent one, so we want you to take it very seriously. We know this is a more rural area, a rural part of our viewing area, but we know that people still live here. So we want you to, again, take this very seriously as well and know that we're dealing with impacts like heavy rain, strong wind, and even some impacts like hail. And again, with this warning, we're looking at hail estimates right now at 1.75. So that's increased just a touch within the last 10 minutes or so. So we're looking at a fairly potent storm. And again, it's this area right here of southern Catahoula Parish that is under the most intense weather right now. And the storm itself is forecast to continue pushing east. I want to send it back to meteorologist Abby Ezell. I think you were looking at hail estimates not too long ago, but I'll let you start out with the latest radar.
Yeah, Marcus, I was looking at hail estimates a little while ago. It was showing some signs of larger hail the past couple of minutes, but it looks like the hail threat has lowered for the time being, which is some good news. It looks like now it's producing closer to pea-sized hail as it continues to track off towards the east at 40 miles per hour. Once again, we do have this warning active for Catahoula and Concordia parishes until 6:30 tonight. This storm is likely located on the very edge of Catahoula Parish, beginning to move into Concordia at this point. We are seeing some very strong signs of rotation at this point. It looks like the rotation is a little bit closer to Louisiana Highway 15. It is beginning to broaden out, though. That's some good news. It's not looking as tight. It looks like we just got a new radar scan in there. It's moving closer to Louisiana Highway 124, and then up next will be Louisiana Highway 15. But once again, we are a little bit further away from the radar site. This is a look at the Jackson radar, so pretty far from the radar site. So this is something to keep in mind, as the storm could be fairly strong, and we're just not really seeing it as well as we're on the very edge of that radar site. I do want to go ahead and put out a new track for you and show you where that storm's moving next. Again, it's moving off towards the east at about 40 miles per hour. So let's go ahead and put that track out there. We're talking about New Era at 5:46 p.m. at Deer Park at 6:21, Fairview at 6:28 p.m., and then Ellis Cliffs at 6:39 p.m. Again, if this tornado warning does expire by the time it reaches some of these locations, it still will be a fairly strong storm. There's a lot of lightning and likely some small hail beginning to develop with that. Marcus, what are you seeing with the rotation and the winds now?
Well, I'm taking a look at this, what we call gate-to-gate shear, which measures more or less how fast the winds are moving from one pixel to the next on the radar. And we're still looking at gate-to-gate shear with near the center of this rotation at about 40 to 50 miles per hour. So we are noticing rotation with that thunderstorm, and it's really this area right here. So south of New Era, also south and east of Larto. That's the area that we're most concerned with, and that's the activity that's continuing to push to the east. Now, I do want to highlight areas that are under the threat for tornadic weather this evening. Here's a look at our latest alerts outside of that tornado warning. We're dealing with a tornado watch that covers Madison Parish all the way over toward Wynn Parish and areas farther to the south and also farther to the east. And while we're dealing with a tornado warning moving through portions of Catahoula and eventually Concordia Parish, we're also tracking another tornado warning right along the Mississippi-Louisiana border, just north and east of Baton Rouge. So there are a ton of impacts being felt right now as severe weather threatens and develops across our region. And when we look at satellite and radar, we are noticing most of the storm activity developing potentially here in central Louisiana and then drifting into central Mississippi and firing up. We're also tracking more wet weather and stormy weather up into northern portions of Alabama, even into Georgia and Tennessee. So potentially millions of people will be dealing with the threat for severe weather as we head throughout this evening. And this is the latest SPC outlook. It has our eastern parishes like Madison Parish down through Concordia Parish under this enhanced risk. That's about a 3 out of 5 when it comes to severe weather. So we're watching that. But we see that threat also extends back into central Louisiana. So we want you to keep your guard up for the next few hours. Our models have been showing things are a little tamer or quieter. But as we look at our futurecast, while it still shows that for 8 p.m., we still have to watch and see what happens across central portions of Louisiana and what could migrate across part of our viewing area. This model keeps the most active weather farther to the south and east, and it definitely shows that we quiet down as we head toward 10 and 11 p.m. That's when that tornado watch expires, but we do have to keep our guard up again for the threat for tornadic weather. But I do want to talk about, again, what we're dealing with weather-wise. We are talking about rain and thunderstorms out there this evening, and when we take a look at what's going on with the latest radar, we are definitely noticing wet weather being out there. And as we take a closer look at the radar, I do want to show you that, again, we're dealing with this dangerous storm moving through. So this is the very latest with the radar. We have that warning that still covers southern portions of Catahoula Parish, and it extends across central portions of Concordia Parish as we put another track on this warning as we track it out east. The storm itself at last check was moving to the east at about 40 miles per hour. We're really watching the southern part of the storm as it moves east. We are looking at places downstream being impacted, places like Fairview potentially, and that's more so in Mississippi, but Fairview by the time we get to 610. So I want to clear the map, zoom in a little bit, show you again some of the communities that will be impacted or are being impacted. New Era, you're right there under the most intense part of the storm right now. Also, the strongest winds are just south of you. Larto, you're still dealing with this very intense storm. And Deer Park, you're dealing with rain showers and thunderstorms associated with this storm. We're also seeing wet weather mainly just south and west of Natchez. But if you are in Natchez or Vidalia or Frogmore, we want you to keep your guard up. Faraday, even, you're outside the warning, but the storm is passing nearby, so we want you to take this very seriously. But again, we are looking at this dangerous storm. It's still fairly potent, and it still could be producing a tornado, or it could produce a tornado at any point. So we want you to take this very seriously. And I want to send it back over in a few seconds to meteorologist Abby Ezell. She has the velocity up, and I think that's a good representation of where we're seeing some of the strongest signs of rotation with the storm. Abby?
Yeah, Marcus, I'm beginning to notice that this rotation is beginning to tighten, so that's not something we want. That means it's getting a little bit stronger where those reds and greens are coming together right along Louisiana Highway 124. It's continuing to track off towards the east, likely near Louisiana Highway 15 within the next couple of minutes, and it will likely be just south of Louisiana Highway 565 again, and this is where we're watching for the potential of a tornado at this point, where those reds and greens are coming together just east of Louisiana Highway 124. This is something we are going to continue to track, as it looks like that rotation is beginning to tighten, so that means that storm is beginning to strengthen as it continues to track off towards the east. It's beginning to move into portions of Concordia Parish at this point, and it is likely exiting Catahoula Parish as we talk about it right now. And it looks like they may have just trimmed that warning, so I'm going to go ahead and take that track off and show you this new warning box. Yeah, they just trimmed it. So this is a look at the new warning box. It does include portions of Catahoula Parish still on the very edge. It's more so in Concordia Parish at this point, and into portions of Adams County in Mississippi. Natchez, this storm will likely travel just toward your south within the next couple of minutes as it continues to track off towards the east at about 40 miles per hour. Marcus, what's the latest with this storm you're seeing?
Well, again, I just want to reiterate, this warning stays with us through 6:30. So we have another 45 minutes or so with this warning. And the storm itself is still something we are monitoring. Now, typically we look to see if the National Weather Service has extended that warning farther to the east So far, they have not. But if you notice, you're still noticing more or less a ball of activity right here, which is not the best thing, at least for me to see visually. It could potentially mean that the storm, that severe, that supercell is still rotating. So that's something that we're monitoring. And this is where we have some of the most intense weather. So New Era, all these places as this storm moves into Concordia Parish. Now, we do know this is a more rural area, but people live here, communities are here, so we want them to be aware of the danger that is currently moving into the region. And if you are in Vidalia or Natchez right now, we want you to be on guard because we still have another few hours of this threat for tornadic weather. And again, this warning, it stays with us at least through 6:30, and it also extends into Adams County as well. Now, when we took a look at hail, actually I'll pull up hail right now just to see what we are seeing with this storm, potentially what we're dealing with. Over the last 20 to 30 minutes, we've seen estimates of fairly decent sized hail. This one is saying golf ball sized hail. A lot of times this is an overestimation of the size, but it does let you know that the storm was fairly potent and it was producing a good amount of hail that could be measured by radar. As we look farther to the east and take another measure, across central portions of Concordia Parish now, they're dealing with marble-sized hail pushing through their region. And so we will be watching not only for the threat of tornadic weather and potentially wind damage and even tree damage, but we're also watching for hail damage as well. And based on the latest information from research done with insurance companies, hail is one of the biggest drivers of increases in insurance across the U.S. So hail is a big deal, and it costs people a ton of money. It leads to a lot of damage to homes, cars, and property. So we want you, again, to be aware of that. But as we talk about what we're dealing with, we're still seeing signs of strong wind. I want to query this. This is another look at our velocity map. And now we're seeing gate-to-gate shear in that area of upwards of 70 miles per hour. So that's a sign, again, that we're dealing with a storm that is still rotating, that is producing strong wind, and that is bringing a lot of impacts to this part, now western portions of Concordia Parish. I do want to put another query just to see what else we're seeing. Again, we're still noticing strong signs of rotation, even 83 mile per hour gate-to-gate shear. So that could be a sign that we're dealing with a fairly strong storm and one that could potentially be producing a tornado. And as we zoom into the area, we're really watching the area that is south and east of New Era. So this area, you see roads here, communities are here. We want you to take this storm very seriously. If you're in this area, we want you in the most interior part of your home so that way you can stay as safe as possible. But we are definitely seeing the strong signs of rotation, and so we want you to know that there's a threat with this dangerous storm that's still moving through. And this is the latest look at that warning. It's slowly being trimmed back out of Catahoula Parish, but the farther east you go, you're still under that warning. And again, it extends into western portions of Mississippi. So this is the area that we're most concerned with. Natchez right now, you're not under that tornado warning, but that storm is continuing to track to the east. It may eventually, the bulk of it, the center of it may pass to your south, but because it will be passing close by, we want you to start taking preparations right now so you can get ready just in case a tornado warning is issued for you. But this is a dangerous storm moving through. This is a more rural area, but people do live here, so we want them to be aware of the threats as well. I want to send it over to my colleague, meteorologist Abby Ezell, for a little bit more on what's happening with the storm.
Marcus, I am seeing that rotation begin to tighten up, which is not good news. It looks like the storm is beginning to strengthen. This is just east of Louisiana Highway 129 at this point, beginning to move a little bit closer to Louisiana Highway 15 and just south of Louisiana Highway 565 in southern portions of Concordia Parish at this point. This is where those reds and greens are coming together on the radar right there. You can also see some pinks and whites in that mix as well, and that is just some very, very strong wind at this point. We don't have any confirmation of a tornado, but once again, this is showing very strong signs of rotation at this point. So if you are in portions of Concordia Parish, definitely go go ahead and get in your safe place right now. If you're underneath this tornado warning, now's not the time to be outside. Now's the time to prepare. Get away from windows, lowest level interior spot of your house or your home, wherever you may be. Get in the safe place now as the storm continues to travel off towards the east at 40 miles per hour. I do want to go ahead and put a track on it in a minute, but it looks like Marcus may be seeing something on rotation. Marcus, what are you seeing?
Yes, so I was able to, again, take another measure of the gate-to-gate shear, which is how we measure speed from one pixel to the next. And we're noticing gate-to-gate shear now, it was above 100 miles per hour, and the map just adjusted. So let me see if I can get another query on where we're seeing some of the strongest rotation. But again, we want you to take this seriously. We don't have confirmation of a tornado on the ground per se, but we are noticing signs of strong rotation with this storm. Again, gate-to-gate shear right around 62 miles per hour, 58 miles per hour. So we are noticing some strong rotation with this storm. And not too long ago, we saw even stronger signs of rotation. So again, this is a threat. We have a dangerous storm moving through. As we zoom in a little bit more to see what communities are potentially being impacted, we're really watching areas now east of New Era and eventually Bougier and even Fairview. We want you to be on guard because you're under that tornado warning, and that wind, that storm, it is moving in your direction. So as we take another query just to see how fast some of the winds are blowing, we're looking at 60 mile per hour winds, 70 mile per hour winds with this storm that are moving east. And so this is a dangerous system. This is a dangerous storm. You'll likely have trees being impacted, even homes in the area being impacted as well. And we, again, don't have a confirmation of a tornado, but we want everyone in their safe area as much as possible because of this dangerous storm that's rolling through. And when we're looking, we're really watching that area now just east of New Era. I'll circle it for you just so you see what we are talking about, but we're really looking at this area right here. This is the area that we are most concerned with in terms of what's being impacted. This is a more rural area, but this stormy weather is pushing to the east. And I will zoom out just a little bit and do what meteorologist Abby Ezell was about to do moments ago, which is put a storm track on this particular storm. It is moving to the east at about 40 miles per hour. And again, we're looking at places like Fairview being impacted by the time we get to 6:10, so about 15 minutes from now, and then eventually Ellis Cliffs by the time we get to 6:18. So the threat for dangerous weather definitely there. We have this tornado warning, and we want you to take it seriously. And we're noticing even more and more signs of rotation with this severe thunderstorm, with this supercell that is pushing east. So the threat for dangerous weather is there. Take it seriously. Get to your safe area if you're in this area, and then hunker down more or less until the threat passes to the east. But this is what we're watching. Again, this is a more rural area, but you see the roads and streets here. There are communities here. There are families here that live in this area, and so we want them to be aware of this danger. But this is something we're tracking. No confirmation of a tornado just yet. But I do want to ask my colleague Abby if she can take a look at the NWS chat to see if they said anything about this storm or if they've gotten any reports. But this is the area that we're watching, and it is just east of New Era. It is in central Concordia Parish. If you're in northern Concordia Parish, you are okay. At the moment, you're still dealing with this storm, but you're not near where the fastest winds are blowing. Abby?
No update right now. They're just showing those stronger winds like we've been talking about with that stronger rotation in the storm. So I am going to show you that right now. And once again, this is in very southern portions of Concordia Parish at this point. It is just south of Louisiana Highway 565 at this point, a little bit closer to Louisiana Highway 15, where those reds and greens are beginning to come together. Once again, we're on the very edge of Jackson's radar at this point, so it's a little bit harder to tell, a little bit more pixelated, but we still do have some very, very strong rotation with this storm, and the National Weather Service in Jackson is beginning to notice that storm beginning to tighten up and ball up a little bit. So it's getting a little bit stronger as it pushes into portions of Concordia Parish. I do want to show you that they did trim that warning up a little bit over the last couple of minutes and no longer includes Catahoula Parish. So if you are located in Catahoula Parish, Parish, and you were underneath that warning a little bit ago. You're out of that warning, and it's now really just focused across portions of Concordia Parish, and it will begin to cross over the Mississippi River within the next couple of minutes. Once again, the strongest portion of this storm is likely near Louisiana Highway 15 and very rural southern portions of Concordia Parish. That is where that storm is located at this time. I am going to go ahead and put a storm track on that. It's moving off towards the east at about 40 miles per hour. A fairly strong and fast moving storm is going to be near Ellis Cliffs at 6:22, at Deer Park School at 6:30, Sibley at 6:30, Kingston at 6:47 p.m., and Ireland at 6:55. Even if they don't continue this warning into portions of Mississippi, it definitely will be a potent storm as it continues to track across the river. I do want to show you that we do have the potential for more strong to severe storms later on tonight. We do have a tornado watch active through 11 p.m. tonight for areas along and just south of the I-20 corridor. This does include Madison Parish all the way to portions of Wynn Parish at this time. Marcus, what are you seeing with that rotation right now?
Well, again, when I take a look at where we have the fastest winds showing up on radar, we're really watching this area across central portions of Concordia Parish. Now, this is a more rural location, but the storm itself is tracking east, and eventually it'll move into Mississippi. And if it holds together, it can impact State Route 161 as well. So, and even as it continues to move east, it'll impact Louisiana 15 within a few minutes as well. You have something else, Abby?
Yes, they just put in the chat that they're looking at the Mesonet camera at the Acme site, and they're not seeing a tornado at this time on that camera.
Okay,
so that's
understood.
some good news.
All right, so the National Weather Service is taking a look at a camera that's nearby where we're seeing all of this activity. So far, they have not seen a confirmed tornado on the ground, but it is something we will continue to watch. And we are starting to get farther and farther away from the radar. And what happens with the radar, because of the Earth's curvature, because the Earth is a sphere, as the Earth curves, the radar beam shoots higher and higher into the sky, and eventually we may not be able to see what's happening at the lowest levels, but we do get ideas if we see that the thunderstorm is rotating. If we're seeing strong signs of rotation, that could potentially let us know that there may be something happening at the surface. And so far, we haven't had a confirmation of a tornado, but I suspect we may see some trees that were impacted as this storm was moving across parts of Catahoula and now Concordia Parish. But I do want to give you perspective, at least on terms of where this storm is in relation to Natchez. It looks like the strongest winds with this storm will pass well south of Natchez, which is a good thing. The storm is continuing to track to the east, but we still have that warning. So when we take a look at the latest warning, we're dealing with this warning still for another 30 minutes or so. The storm is moving again at about 40 miles or so, but it is taking its time. And now we have an update on that warning. The National Weather Service has decreased the size of that warning, but they still have yet to extend it. So that is telling me that we're still seeing a potent storm, but it may not stay as strong for too much longer. So this is something we are going to watch. It doesn't look as circular as it did just a few moments ago, so that may also be a sign that the storm itself is weakening. And even when we look at the velocity with this system, we're still noticing fast wind, but we don't see the sharp contrast between the reds and greens as much. We just notice a lot of wind in this area. So that may be a sign that the storm itself is not as rotating as concentrated, or it's not, you don't see the tightening up of the rotation, so to speak, but it is something we're monitoring. Even if it doesn't actually produce a tornado, we're talking about very fast wind. So we want you to, again, take this storm very seriously and know that this is a threat. And when we take a look at it now, again, it looks like something might be going on here. Again, this is a more rural part of Louisiana, but eventually it will pass across Louisiana 15. And if it holds together, it'll continue to move into Mississippi as well. I do want to show you again what we're dealing with across our region. We still have the concern for tornadic weather. We have this tornado watch that stays with us at least through 11 p.m. It covers much of our southern parishes, even extending up toward Madison Parish. But if you are in Monroe, if you're in El Dorado, Crossett, Portland, you are not expecting severe weather. We had a cold front pass through across our region. That cold front is now south, and pretty much everything along and south of that front is where we're dealing with the active weather. So the threat for severe weather is with us. When we look at where storms have been developing, they've been mostly developing across central portions of Louisiana, strengthening and then moving into Mississippi. We'll have to keep an eye to see what happens back to the south and west as well. If any of this activity, like what we see near Fort Polk, continues to organize, that can mean some of the same areas once again will deal with rain showers, thunderstorms, and the potential for tornadic weather. But I do want to send it back to meteorologist Abby Ezell to talk a little bit more about this warning. Abby, it looks like they've decreased the size of that warning even more.
Yeah, they have decreased the size of that warning even more, Marcus. It looks like, I'm going to show you this rotation right now. It looks like that rotation is just about on the Mississippi River at this point. So it's beginning to exit portions of Concordia Parish and push off into Adams County at this point. It looks like we're seeing that rotation right along Louisiana Highway 15, as well as just south of Louisiana 565 at this point. It will continue to travel off towards the east at about 40 miles per hour. Once again, we do have about 30 more minutes with this tornado warning storm as it continues to travel off towards the east as we head throughout the rest of the evening. I do want to take things back to Doppler 8 radar and show you what we've got going on for the rest of the region. We've got that one tornado warning in portions of Concordia Parish at this point, and then we also have a few scattered showers and thunderstorms beginning to move through portions of Wynne and into Caldwell Parish. A little bit more rain activity as we head into Madison Parish, and we also do have a few showers beginning to develop and push across portions of Lincoln as well as into portions of Jackson Parish. But like Marcus mentioned a few minutes ago, the strongest portion of this activity is right along that cold front. That cold front is likely situated right along our southern parishes at this point, and will continue to track off towards the south and the east for the rest of the night as it begins to push further out of our area. That's when we'll start to see those storms begin to weaken as they don't have as much forcing, and a lot of the environment has already been used up with these stronger storms that moved through earlier this afternoon and evening. I do want to show you the latest track on this storm real quick though. It's moving off towards the east at 40 miles per hour. The latest track has it at Ellis Cliffs at 642, Sibley at 649, and then going into Kingston at 706. Even if this storm is not a tornado warning storm at that point, it definitely is going to be a very strong storm, still likely as it continues to track into Mississippi. Marcus, what is the latest you're seeing with this storm?
Well, everything you said is pretty much the latest. We're dealing with this tornado warning that is in Concordia Parish, but our neighbors farther to the east, right along the Louisiana and southern Mississippi border, they're dealing with a tornado warning in that area as well. So the threat for severe weather, it really is in place across much of Louisiana, much of Mississippi, and up into Alabama. Now, this is the next cluster of rain showers and thunderstorms we will be monitoring. Is right now moving through the Fort Polk area, and if it continues to track to the north and east, it will likely move right across Alexandria, and if it strengthens, it can mean more impacts for far southern portions of our viewing area, like LaSalle, like Catahoula parishes, also Concordia Parish. So we do want you to keep your guard up. We'll be dealing with the threat for severe weather for the next few hours. But as we take a look at this warning, it is much smaller in size. We originally saw it start across portions of Catahoula Parish and even into central portions of Louisiana. But now we're dealing with just an area south of Natchez. And as of now, it looks like Natchez won't be put in that tornado warning. So that is a good thing. But areas south of Natchez, we still need you to keep your guard up. So if you're in this area, we're still dealing with a fairly potent storm. It looks like it's weakening just a touch, but we're still seeing signs of strong wind with this storm. You have this warning that'll be with you for another 23 minutes or so. And when we take a closer look and take a look at velocity, we're noticing some of the strongest wind, which you see here in the brighter colors, continuing to push toward that Mississippi River. So once it moves into Mississippi, it'll bring impacts to areas along Mississippi State Route 61 and potentially areas farther to the east. Back to the west, we're dealing with rain still and also lighter wind, but the strongest wind is right here. And this is a more rural area, but we'll zoom in just to see if there are any communities that are being impacted directly by this right now. And we have to look at Deer Park and Bougier as well, even Fairview. So you all are dealing with the strongest part of this storm right now. So we want you to stay inside, again, get into the most interior part of your home until the threat is over. But again, if you are in these areas, we want you to take this storm very seriously and know that a dangerous storm is moving through Bougier, Fairview, again, areas farther to the north as well, Deer Park even. And Ellis Cliffs, you're right across the river. And if you're watching us, you'll be dealing with this storm passing right over your region now or close to it, and you still are within that tornado warning. So as we go back to the tornado warning and highlight what areas it covers, it really is central portions of Concordia Parish and also into portions of Mississippi, covering part of Adams County as well. And this warning stays with us for another 22 minutes. So I do want to take the time to thank viewers for their patience as we cover this severe weather. Anytime we have severe storms that move through the region, we want to alert the community until the threat is out of the area. And unfortunately, we're dealing with the threat that's still with us right now. But again, this morning, it is scheduled to be with us for another 21 minutes. And then if the storm continues to weaken, we'll likely see that warning expire across our region. And then eventually we'll watch the storm move into portions of Mississippi. But I do want to send it back to meteorologist Abby Ezell for a little bit more on this severe weather.
Hi, Marcus. It looks like at this point the storm is beginning to move a little bit further into portions of Mississippi. This is the latest rotation scan that we have on our velocity map, showing that rotation where those reds and greens are beginning to come together on the very edge of Concordia Parish, likely beginning to cross across the Mississippi River within the next couple of minutes near Louisiana Highway 15, just east of that. That will likely continue to track just south of Natchez within the next couple of minutes. Still a fairly strong storm. They have trimmed it back a little bit. Now it really only covers the very edge of Concordia Parish and into portions of Mississippi, but a very strong storm nonetheless that we've got going on right now across portions of Concordia Parish. I do want to show you the latest track. It is moving off once again to the east at about 40 miles per hour or so it will begin to cross into Mississippi, as this is a fairly fast moving storm. We're going to see Ellis Cliffs being impacted by 6:45, Deer Park School at 6:52, and then Sibley at 6:52 p.m. as well. Once again, a fairly strong storm continuing to track off towards the east at 40 miles per hour. We'll still have this storm around with us for another 20 minutes or so. Marcus, what's the latest with the winds you're seeing in this storm?
Well, the radar is still indicating some fairly strong wind with this system that's moving through. Again, gate to gate shear is what I look at to see how much rotation we're seeing. And at last check, we were seeing gate to gate shear right around 95 miles per hour. And we're still seeing that. And it's really the area just north of Fairview. So again, the National Weather Service believes something may be taking place in this area. But this is something that we will continue to monitor. So if you are in Fairview in particular, the center of this rotation likely just north and west of you, we want you inside in the most interior part of your home until this threat moves out of the area. We don't have a confirmation of a tornado, but again, the National Weather Service is believing that there is something going on with this system. Now, the latest scan shows that it's not as impressive. We still see the greens, we still see the reds close together, but the storm itself may be weakening just a touch as it crosses the Mississippi River. But again, we do want you to keep your guard up because it has been showing signs of very strong wind, and that's a threat that we'll continue to deal with. Again, when we look at this, we're really watching this area right here as it continues to move into Mississippi. If you're in Natchez, you're well north of a lot of this activity, but if you are in Fairview, we do want you to, again, stay in your safe area until the coast is clear. I do want to take a broader look at that warning one more time. They have extended it farther east into Mississippi just for a small area. We'll see if they update it or if the National Weather Service, the Jackson office, will say anything about the warning that is still covering Concordia Parish. But we're really tracking this area right here. This is where we're still seeing the strongest signs of rotation, even with the storm showing signs at the same time of weakening, smaller in size, not as intense reflectivity. And again, the reds mean heavy rain, so they're dealing with